Welcome to the booking scheduling screen for Saviom ERM Web. In this video, we'll be showing you how to make bookings, how to reallocate bookings, how to split bookings, and all the different functionalities that are available on this screen. So, I've logged into the software and I've entered as a resource manager once again, and the first screen that appears is the resource scheduling screen. So the scheduling screen is a place where you allocate resources onto different projects and juggle them around. So what I'll be doing is first explaining some of the different fields that are listed on the top of the screen, and then move into giving different scheduling examples. So we first go into the view section where we can sort by how we want to view the schedule. So currently you can see the resources as per their teams. And let's say I'm a project manager and I want to view it by, let's say, the projects that are there. So I can go by project plus resource and see all the resources that are there based on which project that they're allocated onto. Or let's say I'm an HR manager and I want to view it by the different roles. Then you can see what people with what role are allocated onto what type of work. Or if you're a regional manager or a national manager and you're dealing with multiple locations. So in that case, then you can have a location view. And accordingly, then you can see how many people are there based on each location. So over here, I can see the spread of people in the different cities that I have. So you can essentially see how people with different roles might want to view the screen differently. Now, we can also change the scalability of the screen, depending on the length of the project. So currently, I'm viewing it in a weekly basis. But let's say my bookings are on an hourly or daily basis. I'd want a more magnified view. So I can then change it over here to a daily basis. And then you can view it as per the time and per each hour where the person is allocated. Or if I want a more broad view and want to view it over maybe a few months or maybe even a couple of years, I can change that over here as well. And you can view over which months that the person is allocated onto what type of work. Now these options for the sort bys aren't the only options that you have. You can configure it further and add other different sort bys if you require to. So currently I have listed just a handful of them, but if you want to have a more specific one, let's say in office resources or region or other different drop downs, you can add those as well. So now that I've covered this, we'll go through the entire setup process. So as you see here, we have a clean slate on the schedule, so I'm completely ready to allocate over here John Smith within the infrastructure and service maintenance team. So let's say we see John Smith's schedule and I want to place a booking onto him on April 11th for a project that's coming up. So all I have to do is simply select it on the date I want to start him on and then drag my mouse across for that end date, which in this case I'm going to say is May 10th, so he's on it for about a month. Now once I let go, a booking detail screen appears. So in similarity to the past tutorials, I'm going to be explaining the different fields in order to populate a booking. So right now I've automatically generated John Smith and the dates he's going to be working from, so April 11th to May 10th. So then I have to select him onto which project that he's on. So let's say I want to search from my list that I have. And you can see that I want him to place him onto an external project that I have, and it's the electronic surveillance for gold mining. Now, I can then specify which specific task I want to go into, but there's no task list for this. What his role is, so he's going to be, in this case, he's going to be acting as, say, an electrical engineer, where his location is. So let's say this one is located within Australia in Sydney, and then the from and to date is selected already. You can further determine the effort that is required in the specific project. So there's several measurements of that. So over here you can determine by the percentage or by the total hours that need to be spent on it. Or if you want to go really specific, you can determine the hours per day or maybe the from time and to time on each day that John Smith will be working on this booking. So in my case, let's say I'd like to determine the effort in percentage. So in this case, it's 100%. Now, I want to change it and I want him to only spend half his time. So in this case, it'll be at 50%. Now, as you can note, 100 generates at 160 hours, but the moment I change to 50%, it automatically changes to 80 hours. Now, how this is calculated is by the number of hours that I place onto the booking, so in this case 50, is divided by the standard number of hours that that person is available. So in this case, John Smith is working a full-time schedule, so he'll be working 8 hours a day. So in that case, if I place 50%, he'll be available for 80 hours in that 1 month period. The booking can then also be determined as whether it's billable or non-billable as well. So billable if the project is conducted for a client, and non-billable if conducted for internal purposes. So moving further down, you can have additional notes for the resource if required. And further down, you can also add and have attachments based on the booking as well. Now, saving this booking on you can automatically see it appear on John Smith's schedules in the purple code. So, and you can see that he's allocated 50% of the time, and it also shows you the hours that he's booked on as well. So in this case, 80 hours. Now let's allocate John onto another booking. So let's say for another time, and it starts in April 4th, and it goes on for about 4 weeks again. This time this one ends on May the 1st. Now once again we go through the same process. I select a project. In this case I'm going to select another one, and this is a more internal related project that he has to go on, and this is the Reviewing Engineering Project Management project. And this time I'd like to allocate it, maybe not 50%. This only really requires about 30% of his time, so you can just save it here. And you can automatically see that there's 2 bookings allocated side by side onto John. Now, John then realizes that he has to go on leave later in the month or later in May. You can then allocate that onto him. So then non-project related activities can be recorded quite accurately. So from May 16th, and he's going on leave for about 2 weeks. You can select one over here, see which one. So in this case, if he's going to be going on vacation, I can give him annual vacation leave. And this will be obviously 100%, and I can save that on. So what I'm trying to show here is that both project and non-project related work can sit in the same schedule. So you can have an entire view of all your resources that are there. So for John, he's allocated onto an external and an internal project, even though their dates collide. They work quite perfectly together because they don't overload him. And then he has to go on vacation a couple of months later, and you can allocate that and have a full view of that as well. So now, continuing with this example, let's say that I have to change the commitment of John's work. So let's say for electronic surveillance, he requires to spend a lot more time on it. So selecting the booking, you can see over here that his current commitment was only 50%, but let's say it has to be increased to about 90%. And once that's done, you can see the total hours have to be increased to 144 hours. So I save that on. And the moment I do that, it gives me a warning that I was expecting, telling me that the resource will be overloaded. Now, since I don't have a choice, I'm going to have to go along with this, and I'll have to select yes. And automatically, you can see that the 2 bookings that were colliding, their color changes to an orange color. And this automatically gives me a visual warning that John Smith is overloaded for a certain period of time over here. Now, to go into the specifics, and you really want to see how much John is overloaded by, you can simply go to his name, right-click over here, and generate a quick utilization graph for him. Now we'll be spending more time on the utilization graph in another video, but to give you a rough idea of how it looks, you can see really how his work has been spread across, in this case, March 22nd to about June 21st. Now, I only really want to see his overbooking for that specific time that was there, and that was for, let's say, in April, so we'll go from about April 3rd until about middle of May. So to stay safe, we'll keep it for about the end of May. So I'm going to search that and check his utilization levels for that. So then you can see in each week what his utilization levels are like. So for April 4th, for the week of April 4th, his utilization is about 9.6 hours. And I want to, let's say, change this to a percentage. So he's utilized 30% on the week of April 4th, which is quite low. But on the week of April 11th, April 18th, and April 25th, he's utilized about 120%. So he's overutilized by a fair bit. Now, to get an idea of what that really looks like, you can also then change the scale to, let's say, a daily basis. And you can really see specifically on each day how much time he's spending. So in an hourly basis, how this would look is that on the days that he's working 120%, so he's working 9.6 hour days as opposed to the standard 8 hours. Now you can similarly generate graphs over here and see it on a graphical basis how that looks, but we'll concentrate that on the report tutorial. So as you can see now, I can see the specifics of John Smith's overallocation, but if I want to really reallocate the work, I can do that now as well. So I see Kane Hansen is available at a similar time frame as John. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reallocate the electronic surveillance for gold mining booking onto him. Now I do that, so I simply just select the booking, drag it across with my mouse, and let go at the time I want it to. And now it gives me another warning telling me that the resource end date is less than the booking to date. Now what that means is, as you can see with Kane, his booking or his contract ends on April 29th. And this is visualized by the grayed out schedule he has over here. So again, I don't have a choice. I'm going to accept this. I'll press OK. And the booking gets reallocated to Kane. Now, before we continue with him, you can see overall how from John being overloaded with work and then reallocating it onto Kane, the colors go back to normal, and now John Smith is underloaded, or at least appropriately utilized with his work. Now, continuing along with the example for Kane, we'll see that he won't be able to complete the booking until the end of the duration. So what I can do is, I can essentially split the booking. And in this case, I'll split it at the cursor. And what this does is that now the booking is split into two different parts, and I can reallocate the second part onto another appropriate resource. Now, I can't see anyone that could take this work on, so what I can then do is, I can allocate it onto a generic resource. So in this case, a generic electrical engineer resource. So I select and drag that across. So as stated in the resource profile video, a generic resource are the resources that have tentative jobs booked onto them and are generally useful for allocating for forecasted future projects. They're created to effectively show the estimation of your workload which is required in a certain period. So they're here to show the number of people and the type of people that you require to place onto a particular project. So again, to clarify, these are not real named resources and are there for only temporary allocation. So in my current scenario, I have about, let's say if you go into the specifics, about 72 hours worth of work allocated onto the electrical engineer that I'm going to have to reallocate onto actual resources as my visualization increases. What I could have also done against this booking is directly allocate it onto my generic resource and then state the number of hours that I require to place onto it. So in a real life example, I can place an estimation upfront onto the resource. So for example, if I allocate another piece of work, so let's say for an earlier time, I can just simply allocate something over here, select a specific project. So in this case, let me quickly select one. Let's say it's a streamlining engineering drafting workflow, and I require to allocate 3 full-time people at this time, so then I can allocate it to 300%, and I can save that on accordingly. So as you can see, through this process, what I've shown you is I can allocate resources onto project-related activities, non-project-related activities, for example, the leave that I showed, and then you can juggle around and move your work to other resources and move a part of it onto a generic resource as well. So it really shows you the flexibility of how your work can go from one resource onto another, and you can change the allocation levels of each of your resources that are there. So now that we've covered all our scheduling examples, we also want to have the ability to search for resources across different departments, teams, locations, and several other criteria all across the company. So that means we want to make sure we can find the right resource for the right job. Now this is all done through the advanced search box. Over here you can see I have my primary search fields that I have on the very top. So in this case it's department, team, resource, employment type, etc. But if I really want to go into detail and really specify and find the appropriate resource, I can expand over here. And you can select from a number of criteria and really filter down for the appropriate resource or number of resources you require. So let's go through an example of this. Let's say I'm looking for someone in the engineering department, and they specifically need to have a role of, in this case, let's say in civil engineering. So I'll find that over here. And then I also want to find even in more detail the specific skills that they hold. So I go to the competency section, select that, and let's say they need to have certain project management skills. So I can select that here. And they have to have at least a basic or at least an intermediate level of that. So I can select that here. So you've already put quite a simple skills matrix into here, and you've put your appropriate criteria you want. So you can filter and find the appropriate person. So I've done that for now. I'm going to search. And then accordingly, you'll see your results turn up. So you can see that I have about 4 people that fit that criteria. And from here, then I can check their availability. So Fiona is available in that early time, and so is Bob. So I can book and schedule either of them. Now, I can even go into more details after that as well. So if I wanted to go back to the competency section and really select and say I also want them to have certain qualifications, let's say I want them to have civil engineering, a Bachelor of Civil Engineering. So I'll go from there, and I can search accordingly as well. And in this case, the person that has both management skills and project management and qualifications in BTEC for civil engineering is Fiona Hume. So I guess the point of this is that you can really specify and have as many details as you require. So I just concentrated mainly in the skills area. If your resources are more located in a variety of different locations, the location area would be a lot more relevant. And there's a variety of other criteria as well. Now, what you can see on this screen are not the only fields that are here that you can select your appropriate resource. You can add as many fields as you require, or you can also change the terminology of the ones that you see here as well. So that brings me to the end of the scheduling booking chart video. I hope that has helped you. Thank you.